Welcome back to Book Break. In this video we are talking about one of my favourite genres to read, dark books written by women. This is basically the most common type of book that I read, so I really could not stop when putting this list together. So you might end up with rather a long shopping list by the end. I have got 21 books I'm going to recommend to you now. First up is Little Bandage Days by Kira Wilder. This is the brand new paperback cover and you can tell just how dark this book is going to be from how disturbing this image is. Little Bandage Days is about a woman who moves with her husband and two young children to Geneva for her husband's job, and she is basically left alone all day every day in this new rented apartment with two very young children, and she slowly starts to lose her mind, and we are really sucked into this with her. It's a very claustrophobic, nightmare-like reading experience. We don't know who to trust in this book or whose version of events to trust, because even the main character who we are following is losing her own grip on reality. And we also get flash forwards throughout the book to the mother in a hospital, which is very foreboding. We know that something very bad is going to happen. A brand new release I've got here is Night Shift by Kiara Ladner. So this is about a young 20-something woman who has just moved to London when she meets a woman called Sabine and becomes infatuated with her. Sabine works a night shift, and so our main character, Meggie, decides to give up her regular job, her regular life, her relationship with her boyfriend, all to join Sabine on this night shift. So again, this is a very dreamlike reading experience, all taking place in the rather otherworldly existence of London's night shift workers. And it's about obsession, it's about female friendship and sexuality. It is very dark and it really sucks you in. And while we're on the theme of books about obsession, If I Can't Have You by Charlotte Levin is a really fun, dark story of one woman's obsession with a man that she meets at work. It's a very fun page-turning book. We follow our main character, Constance Little, becoming completely obsessed with this man and reading far too much into their interactions, really convincing herself the relationship can be something that it's not, but it very quickly slides from fun and relatable into dark and disturbing as you start to really worry about what Constance is up to. But I also really liked the angle that the book took on this situation. It doesn't just paint Constance to be a stereotypical crazy ex-girlfriend. You really sympathise with her, even as she goes further than she should. The Harpy by Megan Hunter is a really unusual, dark fairy tale of a novel. This is about a woman who discovers that her husband has cheated on her, and so they agree that to save the marriage, as revenge, she is allowed to hurt him 3 times, and he won't know when this hurt is coming or what form it will take. So it's very tense, it's very unsettling, and also strewn throughout the novel we hear about the main character Lucy's fixation with harpies, the mythical creature, and that lends this book this very fairy tale, otherworldly sense. Next I've got here Can You See Me Now by Trisha Sacklecher, and I'm very excited to have this one. I have not even read this book yet, but I absolutely loved this author's last book, which was called Your Truth or Mine, so I am so excited to see what she's written next, and it sounds very dark. So this book is about a woman called Aliyah who is a cabinet minister in the Indian government, but secrets from her past from 15 years ago are starting to resurface. And then we also get to hear about 15 years ago when Aliyah met 2 other girls. They go to this Indian boarding school and Aliyah gets sucked into their world of wealth and privilege. But it says here that with intimacy comes jealousy and with privilege resentment, and Aliyah finds that it only takes one night for her bright new world to shatter around her. That sounds fantastic, and I know from reading this author before, it's going to be as good as it sounds. The Hidden Girls by Rebecca Whitney is great if you love unreliable narrators. So our main character here, Ruth, is a new mother recovering from postpartum psychosis. So she and the people around her do not trust what she is seeing and perceiving. So that's an absolutely terrifying situation to be in when you can't even trust your own senses. And then Ruth starts hearing noises in the night and she becomes convinced that there is someone who needs her help. But she doesn't know if she's imagining it or not, and no one else is going to believe her if she can't even believe herself. As Long As We Both Shall Live by Joanne Chaney is a really fun book for fans of Gone Girl. This is Gone Girl cranked up a notch. There are so many twists and turns that you will not know what's going to happen next. So we follow a man in this book whose wife has just vanished in seemingly a tragic hiking accident, until police dig a little further and find out that his last wife mysteriously died as well. So what is going on here? Every time you think you know what's happening, there is still another twist to come. This book gets so dark and it's so much fun. And then there's Dead Girls by Abigail Tartellin. I actually interviewed Abigail Tartellin about this book, so I will link to that video below. We talked about feminism in the thriller genre. And this book is just so much fun if you like to see powerful women in your thrillers. It's acknowledging the very real threats faced by women and girls, but it doesn't let the girls be reduced to just victims in the story. Our main character in Dead Girls is actually an 11-year-old girl called Thera. Her best friend has just been murdered. The year is 1999 and Thera is looking for revenge. The Favourite Sister by Jessica Knoll is another really fun, dark book. So this is about a reality show, a reality TV show about successful businesswomen. It is supposedly a feminist show, but the producers are just trying to pit the women against each other, like in so many other reality TV shows that we've seen. So that setting is already dark enough, but in this book we know that season 4 of this show will end in murder, and so we are retracing the steps to find out what happened. And again, there are just so many twists, so many surprises. The book gets dark, the book gets controversial. Be prepared for anything to happen in this one. Luster by Raven Leilani is dark in a very different way. This book is darkly funny, darkly relatable. Our main character is a woman in her 20s called Edie, who gets caught up in this semi-open marriage situation with 2 white characters who have an adopted black daughter. And so we have all sorts of complicated dynamics in this book. The darkness doesn't come from the plot in this one. The darkness comes from within the characters' minds and the way they relate to the world, and how brutally relatable a lot of readers will find this book. But there is definitely darkness in the plot of Shelter by Jung Yun. This book opens with a very violent crime, so be warned for that, it is brutal. Our main character is a man called Kyung, whose parents are the victims of this crime, and so they come to live with him and his family. For the first time in a long time, the family has had a lot of issues, and we follow the tragic aftermath of this crime. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard of Lullaby by Leila Slimani. This book had a lot of hype. It is based on a true story, and it's about a nanny who we know right from the beginning is going to kill the 2 children in her care. And the book is not a fast-paced, page-turning thriller. It is a slow, sad and dark meditation on everything that led up to this happening. The opening of the book, which is also written on the cover here, is "The baby is dead, it took only a few seconds." So that gives you some hint of the level of darkness we find in this book. Necessary People by Anna Petoniak is a dark book about friendship. It's one that takes quite a turn, it will definitely surprise you. It's about 2 girls who met in college, have been best friends ever since, but there is a lot of resentment between them. There is definitely a power dynamic at play here. And we are following one of the girls, Violet, who has always felt rather in her friend Stella's shadow. I was absolutely hooked on this one right from the get-go. Even as nothing major seems to be happening for the first half of the book, there are really dark undertones. We see the characters manipulating each other. It's very foreboding and it's a lot of dark fun. A very sad, dark book with a lot of heart is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. So this is a court case story that takes place after a fatality at a medical treatment centre run by a Korean immigrant family. And the medical treatment centre itself was already very controversial. Lots of people had been protesting against it because of its claims to be able to cure conditions like autism. And also the mother of a child who is killed in this fatality is also placed under suspicion. So So we follow a lot of different characters in this book. There's a lot of issues being explored. It's a really, really interesting, sad, dark book that I just could not recommend more. Another one that I'm sure you've seen the hype for is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is about a woman whose sister keeps murdering her boyfriends, and our main character keeps having to help her clean up the crime scene and get rid of the body, and she doesn't know what to do. She loves and wants to protect her sister, but she also knows that what she's doing is very, very wrong, and particularly when her sister starts dating the man that our main character has a crush on, her loyalties are torn. Then I've got All Is Not Forgotten by Wendy Walker, which is a book I really enjoyed, but it is very, very dark and definitely needs a trigger warning for sexual assault. This is about a teenage girl who was attacked, and her parents and doctor decide there is this treatment, this fictional treatment available in the book where she can erase that memory, and they decide to erase the memory for her so that she doesn't have to live with that trauma. We hear this whole story through the perspective of a character who's not part of the family. I won't reveal who they are because it's a twist that gets revealed a few chapters in, but it's worth having the surprise when it happens. And the book is very creepy, very unsettling. Not for everyone, but if you love dark, twisted stories, it's for you. The Farm by Joanne Ramos is a feminist dystopia, but set in a world that is barely removed from our real world. So this is set at Golden Oaks, a centre for surrogates. So very, very rich clients can pay for their babies to be born to surrogates at this centre. And we follow a few different perspectives, the woman who runs the centre and two different women who are surrogates there. And the darkness in this book really comes from the sad truths that it reveals about race and class and inequality, and the stories that we will tell ourselves to survive in a world where power is not distributed equally. For some dark short stories, I recommend Revenge by Yoko Ogawa, and this collection has a fun twist because these stories are all connected to each other in a way that you only really find out when you get to the end of each story and see how it builds in to a story that you read earlier in the collection. All of these stories are slightly eerie, slightly unsettling. Some of them take place in the real world, some of them go into a slightly fantastical realm. They also play with reality between the different stories and how they're connected, because a character who died in one story we might find having a different ending in another story. Yoko Ogawa is such a brilliant writer, and this is a collection that the second you finished it you will want to go back and start from the beginning and look for more connections. And then I'm going to finish off with 3 recommendations for books that are coming out very, very soon, so you'll want to get your pre-orders in for those. So the first one is The Hiding Place by Jenny Quintana, which is coming out in March. This one is about a woman called Marina who has always known that she was adopted, but the circumstances of her birth have always been a mystery. She was nicknamed Baby Blue by the newspapers after she was found as a baby wrapped in a blue shawl abandoned in a house, and that house still stands. It's split into flats and one of them is now to let. So Marina wants to know if this house might hold the secrets to her past, or if there is someone out there who doesn't want them to come to the surface. Also coming in March is Saint X by Alexis Shakin. This is a dark literary fiction novel about a woman whose older sister was murdered on a family holiday to this luxurious Caribbean island of Saint X many years ago. So we flash back and forth between the past, this holiday, and present day when our main character is trying to piece together what could have happened. So it's partly a mystery thriller and it's partly a dark coming of age novel of the older sister, because we get to hear her narration of the story through diaries left behind. So it's a completely unique mix. And finally, coming in April is When I Was 10 by Fiona Cummins. Fiona Cummins is the author of thrillers like The Neighbour and the Bone Collector series, these very chilling books. And When I Was 10 is about a woman who 21 years ago, when she was 10 years old, her parents were murdered. And this young girl was nicknamed the Angel of Death and now lives a quiet, anonymous life under an assumed name. But it's been 21 years since this terrible murder, and now a documentary crew have tracked down this woman and her estranged older sister, and they want to shine a light on what really happened all those years ago. So I would love to know your recommendations like this of dark books written by women, and I will put a link here to a playlist of all the videos we've made before about thrillers, horror and mysteries. So do click through and have a browse, and we'll see you next time.